All right, everyone. At this time, we're going to call to order the special meeting of June 11th, 2018. Vice Mayor Luna, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Gillio,
Here.
Vice Mayor Solario Luna,
Present.
Mayor Velasquez,
Here.
Councilmember Clower,
Here.
City Manager Rivera,
Here.
City Attorney Diaz,
Present.
Lieutenant Nguyen. Let the record show that Councilmember Friend is absent.
Thank you. Verification of agenda posting.
The agenda for the City of Hollister City Council special meeting of June 11th, 2018 was posted on the bulletin board on June 5th, 2018 at 4:30 p.m. per Government Code Section 54954.2.
Thank you. We're running a little late. We're waiting for our consultant to get here to do this presentation. And we'll move to item. Mr. Snow, are the staff doing a presentation beforehand, or
No, she
will do the whole thing?
She's doing the whole thing, and she's adjacent to Jerry's right now, so she's close.
Okay, she's close. So we're going to take another 5-minute break, everyone, until they get here. Thank you.
Jerry's adjacent.
Good evening, Mayor Velasquez and council members. This public hearing is to consider Resolution 2018-145. It's a resolution of the City of Hollister adopting changes to septic and wastewater rates and rescinding Resolution 2009-147. The 2009 resolution established the sewer water rates that are in effect today. The city, as you may recall, recently refinanced the debt for the wastewater treatment facility, which resulted in lowering bond debt payments and cash flow earned by the refinance. The City Council then commissioned Raftelis Financial Consultants to prepare a cost of service analysis to reassess the rates for wastewater service and septic service. We have Sally Van Eaton here from Raftelis, and she can provide an overview on the study, and then we can conclude the presentation.
Thank you.
You're going to want to aim this at that.
Okay.
Over by the seat.
Good evening, and apologies for my tardiness. I got stuck on 25.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Indeed, I am with Raftelis Financial Consultants, and I have had the pleasure of actually working on this project for a couple of years with your staff, and you may or may not recall that I did a presentation of work study session before, and then my colleague Victor Smith also made an appearance several months ago before City Council. And I have the briefest of presentations. We're going to briefly go over the proposed financial plan. That's the underpinning, what your budget is and will the rates make it happen. And we are looking at rates assuming a 5% revenue reduction. And by that we mean an overall revenue reduction, not necessarily 5% for each type of customer class. As was just mentioned, the driver for this effort was that the City of Hollister refinanced its wastewater debt, and that substantially reduced its annual debt service obligation. And that's good news for ratepayers in general, because the reduction of that debt service, the refinancing, meant that overall the city can reduce the needs for revenue by about 5% in fiscal year 2018 through fiscal year 22. Do keep in mind we did this study a couple of years ago and updated with some adopted budgets. We also, though, did a thorough updated cost of service analysis. So we didn't just plug in numbers. We also did, I won't go into all the gory details, although the report does provide them in great detail. All the calculations, we do what's called a mass balance analysis. We look at factors that are not just including flow, but also what we daintily call strength of different types of customer classes. The point of this is to address issues that were brought up by Prop 218 and to assure that customer classes pay in a relationship to the impact that they have, in this case, on the sewer system. A similar process for a water system. This is a wastewater study. So the updated cost of service analysis resulted in residential and school rates declining because of the refinancing, but it did result in an increase in the non-residential low and moderate strength rates increasing. Now, there's also the potential, we believe, in the future for further refinancing. And this is a good news story. Normally, we're always called in when rates have to increase across the board. So it's very pleasant to come and be able to provide rate reductions in this case. Something the city manager also really wanted us to examine was to look at septic rates. They apparently had not been looked at in a number of years, and that's because the new plant has significant capacity. That's a good use of some of that capacity. And we have also included analysis that shows that it's justified to increase rates from 5 to 26 cents per gallon for septage, but that's not actually under the auspices of this 218 rate notice. But I did want to mention it because we did do a very thorough analysis. The point of this slide is to show that even with the rate reduction, you still have significant funding available to maintain your facility, to provide service to your customers, to provide adequate reserves in case of any emergency or problem, and also to fully cover your debt service requirements, including CIP expenses as well. Mentioned a 5% overall reduction that equated to a 7% decline for your residential customers. There was an increase for your low strength and moderate strength non-residential customers. Again, this is the result of a very careful cost of service analysis, the point of which to assure that customers are paying in relation to the impact they have on the service. And then also we also looked at schools as well and recommend a reduction in the school rate. That seemed to be significantly more than it should have been. So I promised I'd be brief, but I am here to answer any other questions that you or members of the community may have.
Should we? I do have questions before we get to the public. We paid down about $35 million. It's about 30% of the debt, I think I recall, and we're seeing a savings of 7. Well, how did those numbers work out that way?
We are somewhat agnostic in terms of when we look at the percentage you've paid down. That again, we started with a blank sheet, if you will, a blank spreadsheet, and we do the financial plan. Carefully go through the financial plan and look at the cost of all your personnel. Look at the cost of your debt payments. Look at any other capital improvements. Just all the costs that are associated with running your wastewater treatment service. And the rates had not been updated at all for quite a while.
Also, I may add, if you'll recall, Mayor and Council, when we adopted the rates back in 2008 when we issued the bond, or 2006, there was a pretty heavy escalation, which we never actually applied. So the reduction in rate from where we were then to now, remember that we could have went to, I think, 163 per month.
No, I got all that. The concern, and early on, we were being very aggressive as far as refinancing that debt at a lower rate. We were paying a very high rate at the time, and we paid off a good chunk. And I was just hoping to see numbers showing what we were at, our yearly cost to service the debt compared to today, and why it's only a 7%. I'm having an issue today because of that. We were looking to get the $10, at least $10 savings. And then the other issue I'm having is as we're doing or saving, reducing it 7% for the, let me find the page here.
Residential.
Residential. We're reducing the impact fees by 350%, plus or minus. And I'm highly concerned about that, and quite frankly, I'm not very happy about that. Because that's, part of the statement talked about making sure ratepayers aren't going to be having to pay the cost of growth.
Right.
And the rates should reflect the amounts needed for the future costs without going to more debt.
Correct.
We're paying for the past issues here, and I don't see this coming out of it for a while. But to reduce the impact fees from $14,000 to $4,000 is significant. And I have
But
real concerns
you've
about
already done that. You did that about a year ago.
I know, and this is what I'm concerned about now, because we're looking for $10, and now we're talking about $6 here, 7%. Now, the question to you, Bill, why were we able to reduce the impact fees at that time and not the monthly fees at that time? I know we have to do this 218 study, but
Well,
did we move too quick here? Because I'm looking at this chart, and it's saying the current fee, well, this is not current, is showing the 14,000.
So remember, impact fee is based on capacity. So the city council of the city has done several improvements out at the plant that increase the amount of capacity available today over and above what was done earlier. So you have a smaller percentage of each house having to pay as part of that overall difference. So we'll just use round numbers. Well, you used to have 4 million gallons of capacity. Now you have 6, right? And so what used to be 51% of the plant's contribution to new development is now 70. So that's the biggest reason for the reduction in the impact fee. The 218 process obviously is a process for rate payers. Impact fees or capacity charges or mitigation fees is simply a notice and a 30-day wait to actually do that stuff. And again, Raftellus was the party that did both the study on the impact fee or mitigation fee for new development and obviously the rate study. So you should feel fairly comfortable with at least the numbers are matching up appropriately.
Those numbers you're showing make sense.
Yes.
Just knowing that at the end of the day, the ratepayers got a 7% discount and developers got a 350% discount really strikes a nerve with me.
Okay.
And yes, there's more capacity at the plant. When this was first budgeted for in 06, that was the number, 86, whatever it was, with increases we held without going to any increases. Good job doing that. But now we pay down debt of $30+ million, and again, we're at 7%. Developers at a 350% decrease.
But see, I mean, the only reason you got to pay down $30 million is that you were collecting that from capacity charges, right? That money came from somewhere, and it wasn't. I mean, we just reduced our overall debt by $30 million. We didn't actually. I mean, we paid a substantial
down,
amount.
and we reduced the finance
But I think the other thing is that you wanted to be kind of true and compare apples and apples. Is that you would take your highest, there was no change in the community at all, where our citizens would be at $163 a month then versus what they would be right now at $80, which is a pretty substantial difference.
I agree. My goal is to pay this debt off and give the ratepayers the rate they really deserve. I mean, the going rate out there is anywhere between $40 to $50 from what I've seen looking this up. I know some have gone up a little bit more, but we're still twice the number. And I just don't think the decrease in the impact fees is causing an issue with me at this point. Anybody else? Councilmember Clower?
The whole point of this study was to find out the actual impact and the actual cost of providing this service. Is that correct? Okay, so
and it's a service cost, and I would like to distinguish because your points are well made and well taken, but in terms of when we look at the study, we have it's like your budget. We have to meet your budget for running this service, and you may in any given year get a significant amount of impact fee revenue. You may not. It's not a ongoing, steady revenue source that we typically include in the calculations. We need to be able to give you a standalone financial plan that we know we can cover. Even if you have, and as I recall in Hollister and San Benito County, there were periods of time when there were actual moratoriums. Correct? So you were stopped dead in the tracks in terms of new development. So our main concern is, are you getting enough money to continue running your service? And I'd also like to reiterate that the prior study did provide you have not raised rates for a long time, whereas all sorts of costs did continue to increase. The cost of living in the Bay Area, the cost you have to pay staff, the cost of insurance, the cost of PERS, everything that's included in terms of running your wastewater service has continued to go up, even in some of the depression or recession years. There was still a steady increase, and so there was a large period of time when many other districts would have been increasing, and you just held steady for a very long time. So this is a bit of a catch-up study, if you will, but it is an opportunity to recognize that pay down that was made and to start getting your rates back to what's a much lower rate for particularly your residential folks.
Oh, okay, so that leads me to my next question,
Yes.
which is, based off of the study, how long do we expect to be able to keep the rates at the numbers that you're proposing?
We did not. We would have a 5-year rate study, and that's in keeping with Prop 218 guidelines as well. They intended to look every 5 years or so in a more regular fashion. We show no change in your rates for the next 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And I understand the reliable fee source. That makes perfect sense for me. And your numbers all make sense.
Okay.
I'm just asking of our staff here, the impact fee, is this, I'm looking at the chart right now, Bill, saying the current fee is at $14,000.
Previously, yeah.
You're saying we already lowered it.
Yeah, I think you did that about a year ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
that number.
December?
Yeah.
What I'm asking, is this something we can increase again? Because, there was supposed to be some trade-off here to make this all work. And I don't see that happening for the ratepayers. I see it happening for the developers, but
Well, keep in mind, AB 1600, and Soren is here, you can only charge what the cost of services is or the mitigation amount is. And again, part of what the city was able to do is gain capacity. The gallon of capacity now is lower than it was 10 years ago because we have more of it available. And so the numbers just are what the numbers are. And I think that you run risk if you're going to raise impact fees, whether I would never say raise them arbitrarily, but if you want to go through every year or two and do new studies on the calculation of our impact fees, that is something that you can do. We have a kind of an automatic escalator in there. The engineering news record kind of does it for us on a regular basis. But what I would suggest is that when we do make another par amount or a large payment amount, this is still part of the problem. I think one of the things that I want to make sure that the council knows is that the financing structure of the plan, of running the plant and doing our normal operations hasn't changed. We still expect, I think it's 3 or 4 years to look at paying a principal amount down, depending on what interest rates are doing. So we're still doing that in those chunks. And at that time, you would probably want to consider looking at, again, your mitigation, your impact fee amount if it needs to go up. But likely, like I said, a lot of that, most of the time, it would probably go down again because you have a ton of capacity now. That's cheap.
No, I understand. Yeah. And again, when we first started down this journey, it's because we paid off a significant amount of debt at a lower rate now. We were looking forward to making this all work. The impact fees were apparently reduced instantly, as this has taken quite a while. Mm-hmm. Now I'm looking back at this saying, this is not penciling out for me any longer. Oh. The ratepayers got it, as I said, at 7%. And again, your numbers all make sense, so it's not. This is not about you. But concerned, and I think if we can move that quick to reduce the impact fees, we need to be talking about that today. We need to pay off this current plant so it's at a fair rate, and then start putting money aside for the future one. And if I'm using my calculation, I'm at 20,000 new homes. That's only $82, $84 million. We all know this plant costs us $105 to build. So we're setting up for the same situation. I want to make sure
Yeah.
we're eliminating the problem so we never have to face this problem again.
So-
and as I read the report saying making sure we're never going to have to finance debt to build the future capacity, I'm not seeing it right now.
Okay, but what I want to caution you and the council is that, remember, new development was only paying for 48% of the plant. And that's just use 50% the whole way through. So if you have $100 million that you owe, and 50% of it is on new development, and you're talking about 20,000 homes, if that's the capacity, and that's $83 million, that $83 million is related to the $50 million that's owed on the plant. That's why it gets complicated, because today's story is not like it was 8 years ago. And remember, new development only pays for roughly half, or was originally. Now it's paying for probably 3/4, because the plant is so much bigger now than it was when we built it originally.
And
Does that
what
make
you
sense?
mean by it's not physically bigger, but because of technological changes, the
Capacity.
same plant is able to provide much more capacity than I gather was envisioned when you built
Fully
it.
understood.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the ratepayers are still paying that chunk from the past mistakes. That is my concern.
Well, the current ratepayers are always required, by your bond covenants, they're required to cover the debt service for the entire plant. Your impact fees are covering your buy down of that principal.
And again, I fully understand all of this.
Yeah. No, I just
Because
wanna make sure
Remember,
that-
it was me that was pushing hard to refinance because I said the debt was
Right.
too high and we need to pay this thing down at a lower rate. And we did a great job as a team doing that. What I'm saying is this current fee that we have right now was created by some bad planning in the past, and our ratepayers are paying a very high fee compared to other communities still.
But I don't think you
And
can, yeah, but the thing that you need to be cautious of is that your bond covenants won't allow you to go less than probably this number right now.
I
right now.
understand that part. Again, I'm talking about impact fees, and you're right. We don't know if tomorrow there's
Mm-hmm.
no more homes being built, so we can't depend on that number. I'm just pointing out, I'm having concern now with this impact fee, and I think if we had been very clear early on, we could have had a longer discussion about this. So, Councilmember Clower.
Yeah, I feel like we've talked about this for a really long time. I mean, we've been talking about this for probably 2 years, and the impact fee thing was based off of a nexus, just like this is based off of a nexus, and there was a process that was used to adopt the impact fee, which is not the same process that's used to adopt this service charge. Is that all correct, or am I missing something? 'Cause I'm
Yes,
getting a little
one is
confused up
under
here.
AB 1600 rules, and 66,000 it's sequential and requires only noticed public hearing, does not require ratepayer notice like the Prop 218 notice that went out, and it is not subject to the ratepayer majority protest process. So they are two different sections of the code, two different processes.
Okay, so the last thing that I want to do as a council is do anything arbitrarily, whether that's charging somebody too much or charging somebody too little. I don't think that's fair either way, because we're not necessarily up here to make money. We're here to provide a service at the cost that it actually costs us to provide the service. And some people are going to have to pay more, unfortunately. Some people are going to get to pay less, which is good for them. That's the same thing that's happened with the impact fees. The majority of the times that we've looked at impact fees, they've gone up, sometimes by a lot. So I mean, it looks like this time, which we approved November, December last year, that it went down for this one based off of an actual nexus.
And also based on the important point that Bill was bringing up, which is you actually had an interesting situation where the plant was built at a certain capacity, expected capacity, and then because of these technological advances within the actual treatment, that same building has that much more capacity. So the impact fee was done based on a capacity basis, and that capacity basis grew. Again, that's a pretty unforeseen situation. If it had stayed at the same level of capacity, then that denominator, if you will, would have been a smaller amount, and so the numerator, and that would have yielded a different fee.
So we're following all the steps that we're supposed to.
Yes.
And we've done all the correct studies.
Yes, and I defer to legal counsel, of course, but That's my understanding, yes. And I used to work doing impact fee documentation before I joined Water and Sewer.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor Luna.
Yeah, I think Bill stepped out of the room, but my question to him, and maybe Mary can answer this as well, is it was in 2006, was it not, Mary, that the increase went to 86.32 on the sewer rate?
I think that's what Bill just said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was 12 years ago. Yeah, and we've come to the point in time here with the city that I'm glad that we were able to reduce our debt by 30%. I think that's a real plus for this city. But in saying that, I also want to build the trust of our community and our residents. And whether it's a $5 or $6 decrease in the cost, I think it's time that we do something like that. Because after all, I remember well when the sewer rates went up, and there was an uproar in the city. And you know what? Anything that we can do to build that trust again with our residents, I'm for it. So I realize that there's a lot more that comes into play, and that's why you're here, and that's why you did that study. And I think it's every detail of it is important to us and to the residents of the city. So my commentary with that is that I think it's long overdue. Thank you.
Councilmember Gillio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to point out for businesses that may be concerned, there is a slight uptick for businesses. And if you have a business that has, as you know, we're based on consumption as opposed to effluent flowing out. So if you are a business that uses a lot of water coming in and you don't have a lot of water going out, there is the option to contact the city and have a gauge actually put on, or a meter put on your effluent so you can be charged appropriately. So an example of a water store that sells water, brings a whole bunch of water in. No, all they have is one bathroom, right, or so to speak, or perhaps a bottling company or something like that. So just so people are aware of that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. This time we're going to open it to public hearing. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have 2 speakers. This is for the public hearing of the City Council of the City of Hollister to adopt Resolution 2018-145, a resolution of the City Council adopting changes to septage and wastewater rates and rescinding Resolution number 2009-147. And there were 12,570 public notices sent, and we received 1 protest letter back. First speaker is Jane Dabo Cruz.
Good evening. I really didn't have any intention of speaking tonight, but since there's such a limited crowd, I thought this would give you an opportunity to, just sort of sit back and listen for a change. In 2006, I wrote a letter about the proposed increase in sewer service charges. And, of course, it fell on deaf ears. One of the things that I really believe in is people need to pay for use, based on use. Again, there's been no attempt to try and create a tiered system. If you have a single occupant in a household, they should not have to pay the same rate as every other household, because there could be multiple families living in a single household. And the way to do that is to try and see what happens with water usage during the winter months. You can always determine real use for the residents as compared to outdoor water use. And I think there should be more of an effort to try, because one of the things that this young woman has been saying is the impact, the cost impact. Why should someone who is a single occupant have to pay the same cost impact as a household with multiple users? That was one thing. The other thing is, why should anybody who moved to this burg since 2006 get a rate reduction? When they moved here with new development, they were fully aware of what the costs were going to be. They should continue to be charged what the rates are. And the rate reduction should first go to all those residents who were impacted by that very expensive rate impact back in 2006. Until they recover somewhat from that, I don't think you go back. I don't think you try to reduce the cost to the new homeowners. And I'm not, when I say new homeowners, I mean new development homeowners. Perhaps you could think about doing a surcharge for some of these new homeowners, or the reverse for people who were here previously. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to say real quick, you asked in your town hall meeting, how many homes should we build in a year? And in my, well, I'm going to say it real quick. I'm going to say it real quick since there isn't a huge line here. Infrastructure should be your guide. If you don't have it, you can't build it. And that's all there is to it. I mean, it isn't rocket science. She was on Highway 25 tonight. She couldn't get to this meeting on time. Did she not prepare in advance? Did she not know it's going to take an hour instead of maybe that 30 minutes that she thought? You need to build according to your infrastructure. Maybe we're going to be a little bit below the standard, but we're way below the standard. And the other thing is, and of course, being an old person, it just went out of my head. I'll think about it later, but I do thank you for your attention, and I don't think one flat rate for sewage is the way it should go for residential users.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we know the speaker?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Keith Snow.
Hey, Council, I've been here for years. I'm right here seeing all this. I warned you guys a lot at the growth. You guys okay? All these houses, you can't get capacity. If you go over there, I talked to Brett, it's his manager. Last week, I went to the mall. I whistle that we don't own that property. You guys signed off. We own less all water treatment plant. You signed out too, Mayor. Mickey Lynn's involved too. And the manager, Bill signed it too. Do you know that we don't own $3 million debt? Do you know it's gaming? All this? And Bill knows this with Don. Don ran the ribbon cut with Sil. Don, the charge over there, Sunset Water District. And then Jeff was the city manager. He got pissed because I want to know who owns the properties. The $3 million day. Once when you write reports, writing that Sunset Water don't own it, but runs of it, but oversees it, Semi-Can Water District. Jeff, he owns all the properties. You know, Mickey Luna. Jared Dawson knows it.
Hey,
No,
Mr. Snow, please don't make accusations that are not factual.
That race.
Please,
the race. No, let's go down race. No, I'll get down truth. Truth is set you free. You hear it. I want to put on record. I want people to know this. We're not no control of the city. We're not controlling it. We all know control what Brett said. Switch. Hockey. I spent all the way there. When I talked to Jose, when they went to whatever, that's me here. He never sent me no email. And they never sent no email. I want to get down to the bottom of this damn business. When I went at Pat, some workers to come out to the testing. Sean over something began. Never came out. Right, Sean? We're hearing all the rest. Right? And that's why Bill knows all this. You know all this. You ruled off our city. All this silver paint, we're on our property. What kind of city are we? What kind of business are you? And you took Carson. You know our business. Ray Finn knows bad business. You got so-called bad business. Not controlling the business. What I pay $9 a month. Almost double that. Come up here. Are you guys lost of mind? Do you know that purely the Orange City, they can afford it?
Thank you, Mr. Snow.
Aurelio Zuniga.
Yeah. My name is Aurelio Zuniga here in Hollister. As probably most of you know, this is one of my favorite topics. I've written several letters to the editor. I've spoken before the city council here several times. My concern always was that the rates were too high. And even though they're down 7%, I'm not exactly happy with that, but I am tickled to death that I think it's a step in the right direction. And that's just what I wanted to communicate to the city council, to the staff. And I think we still have room to go. But the people that really should be happy about what you've done is the schools. You've lowered their rates 45%. I don't know if there's anybody here from the schools, but they should be happy with that. And hopefully in the future, we can continue and lower them again. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Rudy.
I just want to thank the city council, townspeople of Hollister for showing up and being part of the political process. That's what I'm here to do. I just really want to be part of the political process, be engaged in, what's going on in our town. My entire goal with showing up, in addition to be part of the process, is to attempt to preserve the quality of life, for the residents of the town. And, at this meeting, I'm again encouraged by what's going on, what I'm hearing. Actually, seeing and witnessing a bill be reduced at any level of government, I think is a feat. Generally, when a tax is imposed, it doesn't ever get eradicated or redacted or go away. So 7%, it's definitely a step in the right direction. I also, I cannot remember your name, young lady. Plain Jane. Well, you got a lot of pop because everything that she had said, I totally mirror. I think infrastructure should be our guide when it comes to growth in this town. We need the rooftops. We've heard the realtors come in. We've heard the townspeople come in. This is a beautiful place to live. This is a great little town, turned city overnight. And, we need the rooftops for the growth, but we need to manage that growth properly. So I think this is a great step in the right direction. I would like to see with these additional rooftops, potentially some of the cost be defrayed onto those who want to profit from growing the town. You want to come in and build some houses here. It's a great place to live, quality of life. Put a little bit more of the onus on those who wish to profit off of the growth of the town. So, infrastructure improvements as far as the growth in the roads.
Everyone,
the sewage treatment facility, I really think that that's a huge thing. But really, when it comes to listening to the mayor, I really got to say, fiscal responsibility, I love hearing that kind of come out of you. That was really nice. Forward thinking, trying to avoid situations like this in the future. Definitely love hearing things like that out of the mayor and the guidance of the city council. Those are the kind of things that I think a lot of us want to see. Just be responsible, live within our means. And if Jiminy Cricket said this, I think that we'd all agree. Let our infrastructure be our guide as far as the growth of the town. That's really all I had.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
John Coons.
Hi there. I'm John Coons. I own a coin laundry in town besides selling real estate. And when the bill came out in January, I guess, with the new rates, pretty much hit the floor. It was like a 15% increase across the board. And I guess, when I first saw it and I called into the city, and I pretty much didn't really hear too much in the way of response, but I got a couple of comments to make. First of all, most of the folks that come into coin laundries, of which there are 4 in town, and I guess there are 83 from what I gather from that report outside in the medium strength criteria. These people are not, high income people. These are people that can't afford a laundry equipment. So I think it's just kind of a little bit of a double taxation on them, where you attempt to lower their rates at home, but when they come to do laundry, they get to pay more. So I think there's a little bit of a disconnect there, and maybe it's something that should be revisited. I like your idea about having a little more physical responsibility from the new construction that happens in town. And I think a lot of these reports are based on statistical analysis with regards to future projections for a 5-year rate plan that I think there's an area there that you can, retain more funds and reduce your debt so that the plant becomes more efficient and gets paid off sooner than waiting or allowing the passage of time where you've always got this debt burden forever, pretty much. So I think that would be it. Also, I don't know, and I haven't had an opportunity to look at the report because this letter that was sent out didn't include a link to it. It would have been nice to say, here, this is the current study. Take a look at it if you want to look at it. Instead of, I had 5 seconds to look at it here in the county offices here, and it's just like I work during the day. I'm not down here a lot, so I just thought it might be a good idea to do that as well. And I guess the other thing is, were there any calculations done for the reduced usage of water now that people aren't throwing it on the ground anymore? Was that incorporated in your study as well?
Most of the fees are based on immediate charges, the monthly amount, because it's so infrastructure, and the charges are pretty much constant in many ways.
Do you want to, maybe, if you're going to answer the question, you're going to need to use the mic. So, And I don't think at this point we can do that because this is probably the public.
Oh, okay.
Section.
Well, yeah,
and so
we'll
we'll get some of those answers.
The other thing was there was a basis on. You had made a comment that the analysis was based on your budget, and it was just like, when I look at this stuff like this in businesses, you've got a certain expense and cost ratio with regards to that plant.
So we're going to. Unfortunately, the limit was 3 minutes, so I know you have a lot more to say, but it's just fair for everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
There's no further comments.
Okay. This time I'm going to request last call for any other protests before I close this public hearing. You already spoke, Mr. Snow.
I remembered what I wanted to say. Just one little second.
Well, then we'd have to go through this whole process. Sorry. No others? At this time, we're going to close public hearing. Mary, do you want to? Mr. Snow? Please.
Make a few comments. You try to gather my thoughts here for a moment. It is, I'm sure, challenging for certain of the customers who are in the low and moderate strength categories of non-residential, because the analysis did show that, especially with regards to the strength factors, a shift that should have occurred actually in the past towards those uses a bit more. There is not any further increase projected for the next 5 years. It was based on the city budget, and it does go through the normal budgetary and open budget procedures when that is set. I would like to make a
Just
comment.
real quick for clarification, the city's budget for this department,
Yes.
not for the city
No, not
budget
for
as
the
a
whole
whole.
city. No.
So,
no. Yeah. But is it not evaluated when you do everybody, all the other departments?
It's all done at the same time.
The budget analysis
Right, yes.
and public hearings are all held at the same time.
but the cost factors.
So just, we don't just blindly take the budget. We do look at the budget. And if there are concerns or issues or changes, we do question the client, what is this here? And what, why is that? And what, this looks odd. Is this a typo or is just, this is a change? Things that we frequently see that have changed have included things like the cost of energy, also PERS and PERS unfunded. And I don't know where the city is in terms of looking forward several more years in terms of those types of changes. Those tend to be some of the big cost items over which the city has no control. I think it'll be interesting to see. The city manager did point out his concerns that septage rate was too low. That's a way to make that a little more appropriate. It will remain to be seen whether that brings in additional revenue or not, because it is a market-driven feature. There's no requirement for folks to use the capacity at the wastewater treatment plant, but it is a creative way of using some of that excess capacity, which significantly grew because of these technological changes, and reaching out to other places where perhaps some more funding can be recovered. It somewhat remains to be seen, as I mentioned, because it is a market-driven strategy. I know East Bay Mud, for example, does some significant, and probably competing with your customers, but possibly bringing the rates down low. But there is sort of a market, if you will, when there is excess capacity. So I'm not saying there's no other potential entrepreneurial approaches that can be used, and just also wanted to point out that was something that we were asked to look at. And there's an example of something that might be able to grow and potentially bring in more funding. And Bill, if you have any comments on that to add to that, but that was not a typical thing for a city to say, hey, and also we want you to look over here because we don't think we're collecting enough, and this is potentially a place where we could get some more funding. So every 5 years, as per Prop 218, you should reconsider this study, and part of the reason why it's suggested in the law that it's every 5 years is for these changes that do occur, and to be these items to be reconsidered as well. And I think that this client, probably more than most, is open to suggestions and ideas about how to improve revenue. So, come talk to hopefully Raf Tellis again in 5 years, or whatever other qualified consultant. There are several out there. But keep bringing up these concepts and these ideas.
Thank you very much. Mary?
Just wanted to add also that for the residential, there is the single-family rate, which would go down to $80.38, and then there's a category for multifamily. So if you're in a rental apartment, the rate would be $70.07.
Thank you. Mr. Snow, please. Okay. Is that it? Councilmember Gilliam?
Yeah, for the city manager.
Please don't interrupt.
Just wanted to see if it's possible that you can talk with the folks that are impacted. We had one business owner speak tonight, and if there's any other business owners that come in, to make sure that they're in the right category as far as, I'm not saying they are or they aren't, but in lower, moderate, and if there's a chance to get them in the proper category, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, no, personally, Councilman Gilio, I think I've expressed my philosophical frustration with laundromats. And I think that there absolutely is something that we should, as a community, be able to do in those situations, because I get frustrated with the fact that what difference does it make if I do laundry at home or I do laundry at the laundromat? It all ends up at the same place. And so I think there is a little bit of disconnect there to some extent, and then we could talk about strength and et cetera, but I'd probably like to try to do something different. We do only have 4 in town, and it's something that I've been struggling with for a while. I just don't know how to fix it yet. So I would be more than happy to continue to work on that. And I think one other thing, just if I can have another 30 seconds, one of the things that we as a community need to constantly remember and be very, very proud of is the fact that we absolutely have one of the most state-of-the-art treatment facilities in the entire state of California. And I think some people heard that, we got voted the 3rd best plant in the state. And
Mr. Snow, please, you come to the meetings often. You know the rules here.
Anyway, so excuse me for my whatever. Anyway, so it's hard also when we're trying to compare us to other agencies, and like I said, I think we have a facility that we could all be proud of for probably 50 to 60 years, and where our neighboring communities that are as they grow and the technology advances and they're having to put in that capital improvement, I think you're going to see those communities rates go up and or whatever. So a real fairness would be where do we really line up with everybody in 15 years or 20 years, because I think that's what's going to be the key thing, is that we have a brand new, for instance, car, and when everybody else has to buy a new car, I'm assuming that their rates are going to be greater than ours at some point in time. So we just need to keep that in mind. We have a very, very new facility that is, like I said, it's something to be seen. If anybody wants to go for a tour of the facility, I would love to take you. Veolia is very accommodating. They'll spend a lot of time. I know many council members have been on the tour several times. They would be more than happy to take anybody out there and show them exactly how it works. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? I have to agree. Bill and I do agree here. We do have a facility state of the art. We paid quite a bit for that, but he's correct. City of Gilroy and Morgan Hill right now are trying to figure out a way to build their new plant, and they realize there's going to be quite the cost increase. Of course, it's always better to lower the rates whenever we can. I'm disappointed it wasn't more. I was really hoping to see a 10-15% drop. As I said earlier, my concern is still the impact fees, and I'd like to bring that up in a future meeting. Is there a motion?
Move to approve Resolution 2018-145 and rescind Resolution number 2009-147.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. 4-0 vote. Thank you very much. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
I got to
Motion
beat
second.
Ray